Today, Archangel Michael is speaking clearly and with urgency. Not in whispers, not in gentle nudges you can easily dismiss. Today his voice carries the weight of everything that has been building in your life. Every unanswered prayer, every moment you cried without knowing why, every time you felt something was wrong but couldn't name it. Do not close this. Do not scroll away. What has been prepared for you is significant. And if you leave before you hear the full message, you will miss the exact turning point that was designed to redirect the entire course of your story. He is not here to frighten you. He is not here to punish. He is here because the moment has arrived, and the moment cannot wait any longer. Stay. Every word that follows brings you closer to the understanding that changes everything. He says you have ignored signs, not because you are careless, not because you are spiritually unaware, but because life became loud and the quiet warnings got buried under everything else you were trying to manage. The small inner voice that said, "This isn't right." The recurring feeling in your chest that something needed to change. The repeated patterns that kept showing up in different situations wearing different faces. You noticed them. You just didn't know what to do with what you noticed. Archangel Michael is not angry about this, but he is firm, because there is someone in your life, or someone who recently left it, who was quietly draining your energy in ways you couldn't fully see, not necessarily with malicious intent, but their presence, their words, their energy was misaligned with everything you were trying to build. And the longer that connection remained, the more it cost you in ways that never appeared on any surface. You have felt tired without explanation, empty after conversations that should have filled you, heavy in situations that used to feel light, confused about directions that once seemed clear. This was not weakness. This was not failure. This was the consequence of carrying something that was never meant to be yours to carry this long. The moment you fully release it, everything changes, not gradually, immediately. The channels that have been blocked begin to open. The clarity you have been reaching for stops feeling distant. The energy that was being redirected elsewhere comes home. He says, "Do not leave yet. You are almost at the part that was specifically prepared for you." Let me tell you what the mistake actually was, because Archangel Michael says you have been misunderstanding it. You have been looking at the things that went wrong in your recent past and interpreting them as evidence of your inadequacy, as proof that you made errors too significant to recover from, as confirmation of the quiet fear that says maybe things simply don't work out the way you want them to for someone like you. That interpretation is wrong, and it has been costing you more than the original events ever did. The mistake was not the decision you keep replaying. The mistake was not the relationship that ended, the opportunity that collapsed, the plan that dissolved before it could take shape. Those were not mistakes. Those were redirections wearing the clothing of loss. The actual mistake, the one Archangel Michael is asking you to see clearly today, was listening to the wrong voice for too long. The voice that came from outside of you. The voice of someone else's fear, someone else's limitation, someone else's version of what was possible for you. You trusted that voice over your own knowing. You stayed in situations your instincts were telling you to leave. You silenced your own inner guidance to keep peace with people whose peace was not worth the price you paid for it. That is the mistake. And here is what's extraordinary about it. That mistake had to happen exactly the way it happened to bring you to this precise moment of awakening. Without it, you would have continued on a path that looked safe, but led nowhere meaningful. The mistake didn't derail your destiny. It accelerated your arrival at it. Archangel Michael does not regret what you went through. He is asking you to stop regretting it too. You are standing right now at a threshold, not metaphorically, not spiritually in some abstract sense that requires belief to access. Actually, concretely, specifically at a threshold between what your life has been and what it is in the process of becoming. One side of that threshold is familiar. It contains the patterns you know, the people you've organized your life around, the version of yourself that learned to operate within certain limitations because those limitations seemed fixed. There is comfort in that familiarity, even when the familiar is painful. At least it is known. At least it can be predicted. At least you have developed strategies for surviving it. The other side of the threshold is not yet visible to you. This is what makes stepping through it feel dangerous. Your mind cannot construct a detailed image of what's there, so it defaults to warning you away. It generates worst-case scenarios. It presents reasons why staying is the responsible choice. It tells you that people who have what you want simply had circumstances you don't have. advantages you weren't given, a kind of luck that bypassed you specifically. Archangel Michael says none of that is true. What's on the other side of the threshold is not a different life handed to you from the outside. It is the life that has been assembling itself around the version of you that's been growing through everything you've survived. The life that matches who you have actually become, not who you were when you started this journey. The only thing required to step through is the willingness to stop being more loyal to the familiar than to the true. Do not walk away. What comes next is the reason this found you today. He wants to speak about the people who have left, because you have been carrying grief about certain departures that doesn't match what those departures actually were. There are connections that ended, friendships that faded, relationships that concluded, and you have been interpreting each of them as loss, as something taken from you, as evidence that you are somehow difficult to stay with, or impossible to truly know, or destined to be left by the people who matter. Archangel Michael says this is one of the most important corrections he needs to make today. Those departures were not abandonments, they were completions. There is a profound difference between something ending because it failed and something ending because it finished. The people who left were not able to come with you into the next chapter of your life, not because you drove them away, not because you weren't enough, but because the version of your life they were compatible with no longer exists. You outgrew the environment where those connections made sense. This is not a tragedy. This is evolution. The space created by those departures is not emptiness, waiting to remind you of what you lost. It is capacity, room for what is actually aligned with who you have become. And what is coming to fill that space is not a replacement for what left. It is something that could not have arrived while the previous thing was still occupying the space it needed. The people meant for your next chapter cannot appear in a room that's already full of people who belong to your previous one. The clearing was necessary. The clearing was done on your behalf. And what follows the clearing is something you have not experienced before, because you have not been this version of yourself before. The next 30 days are not ordinary. Archangel Michael is very specific about this, and he does not want it dismissed as the kind of vague spiritual encouragement that dissolves the moment the video ends. This is concrete. This is specific. This applies to your actual life in ways you will be able to verify with your own experience. In the coming days, you will notice shifts in how situations that used to disturb you affect you now. The emotional charge will be different. What previously sent you into hours of anxiety will register and release, rather than landing and staying. This is not because the situations will be easier. It's because your relationship to difficulty has fundamentally changed through everything you've processed. You will receive communications, offers, or information that arrives from unexpected directions. These will not always look like the opportunities you were expecting. They may appear insignificant at first. They may come through people you weren't anticipating. They may require you to act before the logical case for acting is fully assembled. Archangel Michael says, do not dismiss these because they don't match the picture you had in mind. The picture you had in mind was constructed by the version of you that existed before this shift. The new opportunities are designed for who you are now. You will also find yourself suddenly clear about something you have been confused about for a long time. A decision that felt impossible will simply resolve. A direction that seemed blocked will open. A relationship dynamic that felt complicated will become simple, one way or another. These are not coincidences. These are the visible effects of an invisible process that has been underway for longer than you realize. There are things Archangel Michael says you must stop doing immediately. Stop returning in your mind to the moments you're ashamed of, not because they don't matter, but because you have extracted everything valuable from them already. You have learned what those experiences came to teach. Continuing to revisit them is not reflection. It is self-punishment, and the version of you that those mistakes were meant to shape has already been shaped. You are not the person who made those choices anymore. Stop treating yourself as though you are. Stop explaining yourself to people who are not interested in understanding you. There are individuals in your current life who have decided who you are and have no genuine interest in revising that decision. Continuing to offer them evidence of your real self is not connection. It is an expenditure of energy that could be directed somewhere it would actually matter. Archangel Michael says your job is not to convince anyone. Your job is to be clearly and consistently yourself until the people meant to recognize you do. Stop shrinking to fit spaces that were never designed for the full version of you. The accommodation you've been making, the parts of yourself you've been muting to keep the peace, the edges you've been softening so others feel more comfortable. These adjustments have come at a cost you haven't fully calculated, and they are no longer necessary. The life coming toward you was not designed for the adjusted version. It was designed for the actual one. Let me tell you what protection actually means in this context. Because Archangel Michael says you have a distorted understanding of what it means to be protected, and that distortion has led you to interpret difficult periods as abandonment rather than as the specific targeted intervention they were. Protection does not always look like smooth passage. Sometimes it looks like a door being firmly closed before you can walk through it into a situation that would have cost you far more than the closed door did. Sometimes it looks like a relationship ending before it could reach the point where it caused irreparable harm. Sometimes it looks like a plan collapsing before it could become a trap you didn't have the ability to see from where you were standing. Everything that was taken looked like loss from inside the moment of its taking. In retrospect, much of it will look like the most significant protection of your life. The things that seemed to be working against you were creating the conditions for something that works so completely in your favor that the earlier losses will seem like exchanges you would make again willingly. Archangel Michael says you are protected now, not from difficulty because difficulty is part of how growth is structured, but from destruction, from the kind of loss that cannot be recovered, from the path that looked like the right one, but led to a dead end that would have cost you years you cannot afford. The protection is active. It has never not been active, and what it has been building toward is becoming visible now in ways it was not before. There is one thing he is asking of you, not as a transaction, not as a condition that must be met before blessings are released, but as an act of alignment, a conscious declaration from you that you have heard what was said here, that you are genuinely willing to receive what is being offered, and that you are ready to stop resisting the change that has already begun. Subscribe to this channel, and in the comments, write the words, "I am ready," not because this action has magical properties on its own, but because conscious intention matters, because the act of declaring readiness, of putting something in writing, of making a commitment that you can look back at and say, "This is the moment I chose differently," carries real weight in the trajectory of what follows. When you do this, you are telling yourself, not just some external force, that you are no longer willing to stand at the edge of your own transformation, that you are stepping through rather than stepping back, that everything you've survived was preparation, not punishment, and that you are ready to live from that understanding going forward. The shift is not approaching, the shift is here. What happens next depends not on any external force making a move, but on whether you are willing to meet what's already in motion with everything you have. You are not too late. You are not too damaged. You are not too far from where you want to be. You are exactly where this moment required you to be in order to receive what has been prepared. And now that you know that, the only remaining question is whether you will act like it.